Yes, here we go. Sorry. Okay, so today's agenda is quite packed. We have 3 parts, where first we'll hear from a panel of our corporate innovation leaders. And the second part, we'll hear from our female startup founders. And the third and final part, which we hope will have enough time, is to break into small breakouts so we can do some virtual networking in this this pandemic world. We can only network virtually, so we hope to give a chance to get some connections after our presentations. So without further ado, I will introduce we have a great panel of speakers, and they are from the innovation leaders on the bottom line and our startup founders on this top line. So we're thrilled with the positive response that we got from our speakers today, and really want to give them the priority to share their knowledge and key learnings with us. So if we do run short on time, we're already planning to host other networking events in the near future, so don't despair. I'm joined today with our core team. Tina Rosario, who is the WiBD European Director and also on the board. She's our Chief Data Officer at SAP for I think it's a global role, if I'm not mistaken. And myself and Anna Marchon, who is a former Intel employee executive and now launching her business as a fundraising advisor. We also have Cecile Boyeka, who is a business intelligence consultant with Talon. So you can get in touch with us anytime through our email. And we encourage you to do so because we're actually looking for as much help as we can get. So don't hesitate to reach out. A little bit about women in big data. I wanted to start by sharing a short video from the founder, Tina Tang, who was instrumental in getting us to where we are today. And then we'll go into a few quick goals for our chapter here in Paris. So let me share the video.
I'm Tina Tang. In 2015, I co-founded Women in Big Data as a volunteer organization with a mission to inspire, connect, and champion the success of women in big data related careers. Today, we have 17,000 members across 6 continents. There are 34 chapters in 18 countries whose volunteers deliver technical training, professional development, networking, and mentoring events. Our next phase is ambitious. We will expand our reach to those that are underserved in the existing education and employment systems. Our ambition is to provide opportunity to those without access and support systems critical to successful careers. To achieve this goal, Women in Big Data incorporated as a 501c3 nonprofit in 2020 to raise funds for initiatives that include 1, developing high-quality and women-friendly training programs with our corporate and nonprofit partners through certification programs that lead to meaningful careers. 2, creating a leadership program for women and our allies, designed to develop awareness and sensitivity of gender experience differences. Building an automated and secure private mentorship matching service is our 3rd ambition. And 4th, expanding our job board for connecting our talent pool with our diversity pre-screened corporate partners. 5th, we'll be creating an annual Women Big Data conference to learn, connect, and celebrate and embrace our accomplishments and increase confidence in the workplace. We have learned through our work that the most important aspect is community. It's in our shared experiences that we're able to connect and feel part of something bigger than ourselves.
Great. So there's Tina. And I can then go back to the presentation. Sorry, a little glitch here. Okay, so in a few words, in our local chapter in Paris, we hope to grow our membership and community and partners, and also create a regional support network for women who need job recruitment assistance, specifically skills to write resumes, cover letters, and how to deal with the whole process of getting hired. So as you heard from the video, there's nonprofit status now, and there's a revamped partner program. There's also a quarterly newsletter that comes out, which is directed here. And we encourage you to become a member. It's free of charge. You just have to sign up and provide your email. And if you're interested in joining us or giving more time and resources to us, we're always looking for your help. So please do reach out. So moving along, we have a LinkedIn group where you can get news and updates about our events. And with that, we wanted to ask for a quick poll and to find out why or how did you get here? So if you could respond, we will share the results. Let us know how you heard about this event. I'll end it in 10 seconds. Okay. So most of you heard from a colleague and through the LinkedIn post. So that's great. Thank you for your feedback. So without further delay, I'd like to introduce our leadership panel. I'm honored to introduce our first speaker, Rudy Adar, who heads Samsung's Strategy and Innovation Center in Israel since 2013. She'll be followed by Sébastien Gibier, Director of SAP.io or SAP.io, based in Paris, and then Mir Sakar, who is the Chief Data Officer at NG Digital in Paris. And then we'll also hear from Alexandra Prigent-Labé, the founder of and managing partner of Excellency. I think she's going to have to pronounce it for me, which is a financial advisory consultancy in London. So we have several questions for each of you and look forward to a lively exchange. So Cecile, you'll kick it off with the first set of questions.
Okay. Hi, Ruthie.
Hello, Cecile. Good evening.
Good evening. So here is my first question to you. To start, can you please introduce yourself and your organization, please?
Yes, thank you. So I'm Ruti Adar, and I've been in the high-tech industry for over 30 years in different positions, spanning from R&D through marketing, technical marketing, business development, strategy forming, and recently also corporate venture investments. So really very diverse career so far. I've been enjoying it. And today I had Samsung Strategy and Innovation Center, and this is a global organization within Samsung Electronics with aim to accelerate innovation as well as new business creation. I'm also part of Samsung Catalyst Fund, which is the venture arm of Samsung Strategy and Innovation Center, investing in deep technologies in various domains such as cloud and data centers, automotive, robotics, digital health, artificial intelligence, and the intersection between biology and technology. So it's all very interesting for us, and I wish you all a good talk, an enjoyable event this evening.
Thank you so much, Ruthie. That's so amazing. And today is International Women's Day. So what can we do as an industry to increase the number of women in executive roles?
Excellent question. You know, some things take time to mature. Some changes people really need to be open and be aware and able to make it happen. Although in the past few years, I witnessed a great change in this domain. So what we can do as an industry is, first of all, if we are aware, then we may start to encourage women in our organization, especially young women that take their first role or even their first management role as a team leader. Second, many times people are hiring to new positions by recommendation. It's very natural for us in some cases to recommend a fellow man. But if we are more aware, maybe we'll recommend an appropriate woman to a job, to a colleague. And third, we need to pay attention to this elusive type of organization culture that sometimes really kind of set back women. These things could have to do with, the topics that people talk about in the kitchenette. This could be with all kinds of small items that really make a difference. We need to make the organization more aware and open to having women around. And last, I would like to say that this is also a chicken and egg issue. When we're going to have more women in executive roles around us, we're going to get accustomed to see more women in different roles. This will also enable more younger talent women to step up and try to assume such roles as well.
Okay, this is quite linked to my next question. According to you, when is the right time for women to start paving the way for the worlds of business and technology?
Well, first of all, it's never too late. You can start doing so at all stages. Some women grow on technology and business aspects already in their home. Maybe their parents are a good role model for them. Other women pick it up in the university or even during their career in the high-tech companies. So it's never too late to go after a career, an executive career in high-tech. What we see today is really a new generation of very talented young women. I think that they learn very quick. They go after the top positions. They're not afraid of taking risks and founding their own companies. And that's very encouraging to see it around.
That's true, that's encouraging. And was there any change in recent years? Do you see any changes?
Yes, I think that we start to see more and more women. We're getting more accustomed to it. In the past, 30 years ago, when I just started, there were very few women. And at times I was the only woman in the room or the only woman on a delegation. And some people reacted a little bit strangely because this was a little bit of a surprise. Many people addressed me in the email as Mr. Ruti Adar instead of Mrs. Ruti Adar. So certainly there is a big change in the past few years. And as we get more accustomed to it, I think we're moving towards accepting it in a more natural way. It's not something that we're aware of so much.
Okay, yes. For my last question, in few words, could you offer any specific guidance for female founders?
Yes, of course. So first of all, be yourself, be authentic. When you're a founder of a company, you have so much on your plate. You need to attend so many topics that takes energy that to be someone that you're not or something that you're not just consumes too much of your energy. So be authentic. And I think that people now are much more accustomed to different styles of management. The second advice is get help whenever possible. You can never do everything yourself. Delegate, focus and delegate. I think maybe sometimes women are less inclined to delegate than men. And you need to try to get help both inside your organization as well as also help at home. Third is to work all the time on your network. I think that your network is the one place that is really going to be very impactful and meaningful for your success in the future. Another very important advice is try to get a mentor. It could be a man or a woman, someone that really believes in you and you can consult with them, share your concerns, deliberate different decisions that you need to take. This mentor could be someone from the outside, or in some cases, it could even be your boss. I was very lucky to have amazing mentors that believed in me and empowered me, and some of them were my bosses. And maybe the last word for young entrepreneurs is try to enjoy. You're in such roller coaster. Founding a company and heading it to its next level of success is taking so much from you that you need to find ways also to enjoy, relax, and maybe even dedicate a few times a week to a hobby or something. Otherwise, it's very hard to endure it. I think that young women entrepreneurs are doing amazing jobs here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rithi. Thank you for such encouraging and helpful words. And I guess the audience will appreciate what you said. Thank you so much, Rithi.
That was great. Thank you. It's very interesting. A takeaway for me is never too late to go after a high-tech career or executive role.
Exactly.
I think that's really good advice. You're never too old. So now we move to Sebastian, and I have the honor of asking you questions as a colleague as well. So please introduce yourself and the SAP-IO organization.
Bonjour Elisabeth, hello everybody. So yes, I'm Sébastien Gibier. I'm in charge of the startup accelerator of SAP based in Paris, that it is called SAP IO Foundry Paris. And I remember 1 year ago, you were organizing a great session physically in Paris, in the location of SAP IO, and I really look forward that we come back to the office, and you will be more than welcome again. So what is SAP IO? And SAP IO is in fact a network of physical accelerator. We're really engaged into the relationship between startups and SAP. And the goal behind that is really to create, to in fact brings more value to our customers by developing a network, an ecosystem of complementary solution to SAP solution. And we have 9 locations around the world, 2 in the US, 4 in Europe, and 3 in Asia.
Great. Okay, I didn't realize there were several of us, of you. That's cool. So from the SAP IO perspective, why do you see that diversity is important, both in technical and business roles? And how does it impact the bottom line?
In fact, so yeah, I will talk indeed specifically about SAP IO, which is a concrete example of how SAP is driving this change of diversity. We're in fact not a small team, but a global organization who is working like a startup. I think three examples how we drive diversity inside SAP IO. First is we're an organization with full parity. So the same number of women and the same number of male into our organization. That's the first point. We have a second thing is that women are in position to lead. So for example, our organization is led by Alexa Gorman, who was just this weekend nominated as one of the 100 inspiring women in Germany. So it's really great to be also leading by such inspiring women. And the third thing is that in fact, SAP IO has developed an initiative called SAP IO No Boundary to really foster and create the dynamism around this topic of diversity. And behind SAP IO No Boundary, we have a clear commitment where we want to accelerate more than 200 startup led either by female or underrepresentative founders or CXO by 2023. We also drive other and support other initiatives. For example, locally, last year we have supported a great association called Les Déterminés, who is delivering an acceleration program for underrepresentative innovators based in Paris and all around France.
Great. Yes, SAP and in Paris particularly is kind of a hub for a lot of innovation. So that's great that we can support that as well. Yeah. So, and it's true that last year we had an in-person event at the SAP IO, and that was one of the greatest events that we had as the Paris chapter. So we hope to do several other events there in the future whenever we can get back to work. So the next question is about the ways you're engaging with startups, and maybe you've already kind of covered that, but some of the models of engagement, are there specific programs targeting the advanced data science fields, or do you first evaluate the business value for SAP customers?
No, that's really important. So we have 9 locations, as I said, and we're all working the same way. We develop 2 cohorts, so 2 programs per year, 1 in spring, 1 in fall. It's always a thematic cohort. So for example, last year I did 1 in Paris about future of work and 1 other about procurement. And my next cohort, where I am selecting the startup right now, will be focused on agribusiness. So we are selecting 8 startups each time for each cohort. And that's a great question regarding what about technology in our program. Of course, we are dealing with startups, so technology is obviously a very, very important. So we are looking for AI startup, big data, augmented reality startup, etc. But more than that, I really think that's what we care the most is the value that those startups are building and bring to customers, and especially SAP customers.
Okay, that's clear. Yeah. And so you would test their ideas against a customer issue, or they would bring you the problem and then you would find customers that would have the same problem.
That's exactly that, Elizabeth. We in fact incorporate and co-produce the program with customers and with our labs also to be sure that those startups, for example, for agribusiness, those startups really fill some gap and some needs that our customers are expecting. Great.
Can you share any examples of your the applications that you've had, or is it too soon to share that?
No, we have great startup about precision agriculture, for example, which is a link between AI and robotics and sensors in the fields. We have also a great startup in the area of imagery analysis, how to, from imagery from satellites, you could analyze several things and give advice to the agribusiness. And we have also a startup in the supply chain area. There's a lot of topics and things on these topics. So this is the kind of startup we're working with.
Great. Okay. So what advice could you offer for any female founders that you have?
So it's always a tricky, and I'm not so at ease to give advice to women. I would prefer to say this is my advice I give to anybody and to any entrepreneurs, women, men, whoever. This is first important, and Ruti, you talk already about that. I think that be yourself, trust in you, don't want, especially for women, but don't try to look like male. Be yourself. The difference is really a value, and I think that it is this difference, especially in the innovation space, that we are looking for. So that's my first advice. Second one is indeed find role model, but it's also applied to male. And I think that's find mentors, find people who inspire you, be part of a great association like Women in Big Data, but there's plenty of them. Last year we also signed a charter called We Are Sister, who is really developing the diversity in the startup ecosystem. And my last thing, and again, it's also applied for male, make yourself respected in any situation. I think that it is really key that this value is very key for anyone.
No, that's a tricky one, to make yourself respected. I think that's a key point, but maybe we have to deep dive on that topic some other time. And so it sounds like you've seen some changes over the last years in the attention that diversity brings to the playing field.
Yeah, really, it's really concrete in what we do every day and year after year. We see big changes. When I look to the startup who apply to my next program, 50% of them are underrepresentative or female-led startup. So it's so great. And if I look back to all the cohort we run in Paris, 37% of those are led by underrepresentative or female founders. So I really believe that we improve things, and I think that why we improve things. It's first because we are diverse internally. It's really important. It was one key point in the SISTA charter is that if you don't have a clear diversity and a clear parity in your decision maker, it's hard to really have a diverse results. So that's the first point. And I think that also the second point is that we include this topic at the heart of what we do with the no boundary commitment. So even if it's not a criteria to have women in our selection, we don't select on that, but we pay all attention to make sure that we have women, startup led by women in our selection, in our processes.
Great. Yeah, that's really true. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
That's all we have time for today. So we'll move on. Thank you so much, Sebastian. So moving on to Mir Sakar and Cecile.
Hi, Mihir.
Hi, Cecile.
Hi. So we had a chance to talk a little bit a few days ago, and I would be happy if you can introduce yourself to give a snapshot about your background and your organization, please.
Sure. So yeah, first of all, thank you, Cecile, and thanks to Anna who invited me. So my name is Mihir Sarkar. I'm a head data at NG Digital since a year and a half. So I'll share a little bit about my background. I was born and raised in Paris and studied here until engineering school, but I actually never worked in Paris until now. So my first job was in finance and technology in the US. After that, I worked in the semiconductors industry and in consumer electronics in Belgium and in India. And then I moved on, went back to grad school after 10 years in industry, and I got my PhD in AI from MIT. And there I focused on helping promote the concept of design thinking and hackathons around the world. And then started a couple of startups in Silicon Valley and worked for a startup in London, all in music technology. And then more recently, I returned to Paris. I joined NG, and the goal here is to develop data-powered digital platforms for the zero carbon energy transition. So it's been a diverse journey in terms of fields, organizations, geographies.
Thank you, Mihir. As most of our speakers, you all have diverse background, and I would like to go back to some points you highlighted. We need to know a little bit more, given your extensive experience. What are the key insight into the fields of academia, startups, and also multinational corporations? Do you have any particular case in mind as well?
So yeah, through my career, I've been in different contexts and types of organizations. So I'll give you a few examples. So at MIT, for example, it's interesting to note that there's a little more than 50% of undergrads that are women. And there's this somewhat pernicious perception, even on campus sometimes, that it's easier to get into MIT if you're a woman. But actually, MIT never established quotas for women. They did it by doubling their efforts on making sure that the best female high school students would apply to MIT and feel that they were good enough to apply, actually. And I think so this idea that the imposter syndrome idea is something that we have to fight against. And it's also important to fight against to have an inclusive language. So it's, I was almost going to say that MIT never officially established quotas, but just that word would completely change your perception of what that means. So there's a stereotype at MIT that it's the geek, usually a white or Asian kid that who codes since he's 10 years old and who belongs to MIT. And there's anecdotal evidence that that's the case sometimes, but we have to break free from those stereotypes, and we have to do that qualitatively, but also quantitatively. So besides academia, in startups, and I think Sebastien mentioned that there is a lack of diversity in women founders and also in VCs that fund startups. So it's important to have role models, and I think France is making a lot of efforts in that direction as well, and having and developing programs that focus on inclusiveness. And I think diversity is important, especially for startups that claim to disrupt markets, to think outside the box. So it's important to have diversity in the teams and to do it from the get-go, because you want to build a culture from the start. So a lot of startups may think that, we're just 5 people or 10 people, will think about diversity later. But as the company grows, you have to design it from the ground up. And the people who are going to recruit the next 50 to 100 people are the first 5 or 10 people. So it's really important to have that in mind when you create a startup. And finally, maybe a few words on NG Digital, which is the digital company within NG. And it sometimes feels that we are in a startup within a large multinational corporation, but we have a lot of processes and a lot of guidelines that help us achieve diversity. So today, NG Digital is around 31% female, which for a tech organization is not yet there, but getting there, and we have a target of 50%. And we try to do team training, to have hiring processes where even when we write the job offers, we try to use inclusive writing. We use R's instead of ands and job requirements. We have interviews by women on the team. But when, for example, on my team, I do self-assessment of technical skills and soft skills, I see that, again, anecdotally, I don't know statistically if that still holds, but women on the team tend to underrate themselves on average. So it's really important to have guidelines and to push for bridging that gap within an organization.
Yeah, thank you. And you said that indeed, little by little, things are changing. We need more role models also. And I can see that you also mentioned that diversity is very important to you. Can you explain to us what does it mean to you and why is it important to you? But broadly speaking about diversity, not just van gender.
So yeah, I think diversity is important even among men that are in power in many of the companies today, in terms of demographics, in terms of psychographics, in terms of schools they come from. We see a lot of uniformity, and the company I work for, NG, is the only company in the CAC 40 on the stock market in France today that is led by women, and it's been the case for the past 2 CEOs. So I studied culture and bias in AI when I was at the MIT Media Lab. And it's a place where I did a thesis on the role of culture in the design of technology and algorithms. I did it in the case of music. So just to give you an example, the technology that's most widely used in music, which is called MIDI, is based on Western classical music. And I was interested to see why we couldn't apply that to non-Western music. And the case is, it correlates with the fact that most people who design the technology are people who were mostly familiar with classical Western music. So I think having people on the team who are from various backgrounds help mitigate bias in technology and algorithms. So the Media Lab is also a place where we think a lot about the interface between technology and humans, and it's important to be inclusive in that regard. So Joy Bolamini, for example, who's been studying algorithmic bias, is a researcher there. Aurélie Jean in France also has a background at MIT. So there's a lot of people who come from that ecosystem who've been thinking a lot about these ideas beyond gender. So there's a lot of examples of racial and gender discrimination by algorithms because of design, because of data sets. We've been thinking a lot about neurodiversity as well. So there's programs at the Media Lab that started with affective computing, so technology that helps support emotions, and especially people on the autism spectrum. So now at NG Digital, we have a program that is in collaboration with GEM, GEM being the Grenoble École of Management, which is called Data Asperger. And they train people on the autism spectrum in data science. And we have a program where we take some of these students in-house to work with them over the course of a year. So we signed up for that program, and we're going to have our first trainee next year. So for organizations, I think it's important to have a diverse team to avoid groupthink traps, and to have technology and products that are inclusive beyond just the walls of the organization itself.
Thank you. You provide us so much information. So I encourage the audience, if you have any questions, please feel free to send it to the chat or even by email. And if we don't have time to respond to the questions, I'm sure Mihir, even later, you can help us to respond to the audience to all the questions.
Absolutely.
So thank you. I have a last question for you. You already talked a little bit about your company, NG, and there's no doubt actually we need to close the gender gap, and we need more women in tech. Could you share with us the opportunities or actions taken at NG? Maybe about recruitment. Yeah.
Sure. So let me focus on specific things that happen in my organization and in my team. So I had data science and data engineering, and we have specific hiring needs in both of these fields, data scientists and data engineering roles. And we actually see that there's, it's somewhat easier to have gender balance in data scientists, and we almost have that in my team, but it's not the case in data engineering. So without going into the reasons of why that's the case, a few of the things that we are putting in place that might help mitigate that is thinking about retention rather than acquisition. So I think it's important to to recruit women, of course, but it's also important to keep the women on your team and to make them grow and have a career path that bridges the gender gap. So what I mean by that is that one of the initiatives we've put in place in my team is to merge the data scientist role with the data engineering role into something that's the machine learning engineering role, or the full stack data scientist. And what that does is that people who are data scientists, so who are likely to be more women statistically, have the opportunity to acquire data engineering capabilities by certifications, by training, etc. And that helps us in having data engineers who are women. So it's new initiatives. We are in the process of getting there. It's not yet fully fleshed out, but it's kind of the direction in which we aim to go.
Okay.
So in terms of recruitment, we don't offer preferential treatment to women, of course, but everyone goes through the same process. So the only way to increase gender diversity is to have more people in the pipeline, more women in the pipeline. So what we do is to try to be more inclusive, to participate in events such as these, so that more women are aware of what we do and find a fit with our organization and its values.
That's really encouraging, and hopefully the other organization will follow the same direction as your company do. So thank you so much, Mihir.
That's really interesting. Yeah, thank you so
Sure,
much.
thanks.
Very good insights too. So now we'll move on to our final speaker on this panel with Alexandra. So I think Anna will be asking you the questions.
Sure. Well, last but not least, Alexandra, thank you so much for joining and contributing to this panel. The first question is to please introduce yourself and your organization, perhaps say a few words about your journey as a managing partner and the co-founder of the company that you're running.
So hello, everyone. Thank you very much, Anna, for inviting me. So I'm the managing partner of Excellency, which is a strategic advisory firm based in London with offices in Paris. We advise investment funds and portfolio companies on big transactions. And that includes fundraising from small companies all the way to multi-billion IPOs. And 60% of our work is for tech companies. So big data, technology, innovation, more than digital. So it's more like really the heavy technology that we work on. And so we work across Europe, and we also work in the US on some global companies. My background is that I started my career in finance, in capital markets. So I was at Goldman Sachs for 10 years, and I used to run the European team for pension and insurance companies. So most of the people that actually provide capital for the tech companies to grow, even though that feels like a long way away, a long road away from tech, those people actually fuel most of the series A, B, C, and then IPOs when a company succeeds that well. So that's, I founded Excellency about 5 years ago, and it's growing relatively fast. I also serve on the board of HEC Paris, which is one of the big European business schools. And I mentioned that because I've been teaching there for 12 years now, but I mentioned that because I truly believe that higher education has a big role to play in diversity. And I can definitely say, as a former student, as a professor, and as a board member, that there's a lot of work to still be done at university level. And that's why I really, really appreciate everything you said, Mihir. I agree with absolutely everything you said. And I think it's really, really important to start the journey of diversity really, really early on, so that when you graduate, whether you go for a master's, an MBA, or a PhD, you don't end up starting your career with bias that have actually been ingrained in your brain as opposed to inherited. So I think it's really, really important. So that's kind of my background, I would say. And I live in London, so I'm calling you from London, but I'm French, I'm sure you can hear.
Yes, thank you so much. And this is great to merge communities and actually to take advantage of the COVID situation and being virtual, so that we're not just limited to physical location. What about big data? When we had our first call, you mentioned that big data is so important for work in finance, and therefore for you, all these areas of finance, investment, technology, they actually are closely overlapping, and diversity is a big question mark in all these fields.
Yeah, so the reason why big data is so important to finance in general is because this is one of the very few areas where there's still a money-making mechanism. So what I can tell you is the reason why my company is so focused on technology is because we know technology. I mean, all the partners have a very long track record of either building and selling or advising technology companies. But it just so happened that actually this is the hot area right now where everyone is looking. And what is very interesting is there is a bit of a disconnect between the people that still manage investment. So I'm not talking about banking, I'm talking about people providing funding for companies.
The venture capital
and growth funds as they grow. So there is still a bit disconnect in terms of background between those people and the people that actually innovate. And that's very relevant for women. So, but not just women. So basically, if you look at the population of investors, they are all very, very homogeneous, both in terms of social background, in terms of origin around the globe, in terms of age. And so there are many things that they don't see, are not able to understand, both on the world changing, on the, I mean, Bumble, which I'm sure everyone has sees, this big dating app, which suddenly everyone is celebrating, is a very good example of that. So so I think there's two problems. The first one, and it's true in finance, it's certainly true in technology. The first problem is if the people who decide are not diverse, then they will all agree all the time that they're making the right decision. And obviously they will be making mistakes. So first of all, if you actually limit the spectrum of knowledge, understanding, and experience, you're actually missing a whole segment of your opportunities. And in finance, we can see that really, really well, because there are companies that actually struggle to find funding for like 5 years. And when they do, boom, in 6 years, they're IPOing. So this is very, very true. The other thing is, I believe that diversity is just the best example of selecting the best people. I mean, how can we argue, and I'm not saying anyone here is arguing that by selecting from a smaller group, you're selecting the best globally? That just makes statistically no sense. So I think it's a combination of both. If you actually want the best people, there should be relatively equal spread of people from, you know, social, citizenship origins, and obviously gender and much more, because that's statistically more logical. So for both things, but the main bias is decision-making process. I think it's just, if you're all the same, you will like the same people, and you're going to leave a lot of money on the table, in my world, by ignoring some of the amazing opportunities that you're presented with.
Thank you so much. Absolutely. I heard some movement on the videos, but perhaps we'll have some time for questions a bit later. My next question is, you personally, as a woman, as a managing partner, as a professor of finance, working in this very conservative male-dominated field, what is your experience, and also what are the lessons learned and sort of the positive outcomes and the advice that you could share with women who are building their careers in the space?
So the first advice is to just be very, so it's not that you can do anything, but you can do almost everything. So a lot of women, and that includes me, tend to hedge their bets and don't go for their first choice, but they go for their second choice because they think the likelihood of reaching it. I mean, I have a background in probability, so to some extent it makes sense. It's a different way of approaching life, but I think because women are probably more balanced in the way they make decisions, in a way, just because they've been taught to do that, they tend to settle for something which is already quite good, and that's why women are successing so well as well. But they don't shoot for the stars, or actually quite few of us actually dare to just go for the stars and take a chance that they're just going to squash on the floor. So when people ask me, how did you create excellency? How did you manage to advise on those gigantic IPOs where you're just 10 people and 75% of the company is female? So actually, you know, bias goes both ways. You know, it's hard for us to hire people that do not actually come from Europe or are not female, because we relate to them. So we have the same similar bias. But I think when people ask me, how did you do this? I just say, well, I dared to do it, and very few people do. So my experience is just daring. So obviously there's a lot of work, and there's a lot of fear, and there's a lot of desperation along the way. And there are amazing days and terrible days, because it's still a relatively intermediate business in terms of size. But I think daring to just do it. And I think what I've noticed as well is, over time, as you grow more and more senior, you tend to be more risk adverse. And one thing that I discuss with a lot of women that I mentor is, very often they forget the exceptional things that they have done already. So they're looking at what they want to do. And if you compare what they want to do with what they've succeeded in doing so far, it's actually much less of a big step. But we kind of, I call this the ratcheting effect. The more we have, the more we feel if we do more, we're going to lose. At least that's how I used to think. So I think my big advice is just dare to fail, because if you don't dare to fail, you're not going to succeed. And I think somehow, maybe in the way we've been raised, it's a harder thing to do. Mm-hmm. And the last thing, you have to accept that you have to be very bold, and so sustain some things that you may think are criticism, like, you know, you're too self-confident, or you're too aggressive, or, you know, NG has been really exceptional in showing that women can lead very big companies, and NG's previous CEOs has been subject to a lot of aggressivity, including by the press, not just the business world. So you have to be very strong, because by doing that, some people will celebrate what you're doing, and some people will just be very, very tough. So you have to be ready to
Sure.
receive some
Just
criticism.
accept it.
Yeah, well, you decide, but if you do, and it's fine, you don't have to be liked by everyone.
True. Thank you so much. Could you elaborate a little bit more on the importance of failure in how important it is to actually succeed and having the guts to fail and actually embracing it? Because to me, it sounds like maybe in Silicon Valley, it's more of a concept that you have to fail fast. It's part of the journey. And maybe it's more of a European mentality as well, that failure is negative and it's like it's the end of the journey.
You're absolutely right. And I'll be very honest with you. I mean, I didn't receive much support. I mean, I was having a very fast career at Goldman Sachs. I had like the, HSA and then Goldman Sachs and then London and all is fine. And I was one of the women that was very strongly supported within the bank. And so when I left, everyone was just bewildered that I did. They were like, why are you doing this? I mean, and I didn't leave to start an impact company. I started a consultancy in finance. So it's not like I'm changing the world. I'm just doing the same thing, but for myself. So to be honest, I still sometimes wonder why I did this in terms of risk management and shooting for the stars. I'm not saying that Europe supports failure. No one does. And I don't want to fail. So it's not like I'm thinking it's okay if I fail. It's not okay if I fail. I don't want to fail. But I find that it's in my office here, I have I'm going to read it. It's success is not final, failure is not fatal. It's the courage to continue that counts. And it's Winston Churchill. And it's obviously not my office because of the home working, but it's still there. Never, and you never succeed completely. It's always a journey. So if you accept that, if you accept judgment of people thinking you're failing, or you fearing that maybe you're going to fail and humiliate yourself, if it's more, I think it's more struggle between yourself and yourself than with the rest of the ecosystem. But I have to be honest. I mean, I started the company when I had saved money from high paying job as well. So it's not like I just went crazy and thought I'm gonna destroy my life, whatever, if I fail. It's not what I mean. I mean, yeah, if you want to reach for the sky, you have to be ready to just hit the floor very hard. And I'm not sure, I don't know if in the US this is that easy. I think maybe we're having European eyes looking at the US. I think in the US it's very hard. I mean, courage is celebrated in the US, and that's wonderful. And failure is not considered like a dead end. But I'm not sure. I think we're probably a bit naive about how hard it is still to fail in the US, I suspect. I don't know, Mihir, how you feel about this, because if you studied in MIT, you probably had some experience of that. But I think we should just not be too optimistic about the pleasure of failure. This is, if you are an entrepreneur, you're working 15 hours a day, you don't want to fail. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Absolutely. And I think you touched on a lot of very important ingredients and aspects of this. I just think that maybe it's the perception that in the US, if you're a tech founder and your company did not succeed, it's just considered as a part of a journey, and it still counts the lessons that you learned from it. And it's still incredibly hard, but it's not considered to be maybe the end game. It's considered to be a part of the experience that you're building, maybe a bit more than in Europe.
I think you're probably right. It's probably the case. But I also think that, there are a lot of entrepreneurs who have failed in Europe and they still have very interesting careers.
Absolutely.
So it's not easy to fail 5 times in a row in France, in the UK, but you still have a career. And I think,
Yep, that's very, very true. And another point that you brought up that would like to ask you to elaborate is you said it's very important to have the technical skills, the financial skills, but also the business skills. Like it's the right blend of all these competences that brings the most value today from your perspective.
Yes, we had this conversation when we chatted to prepare the event. So I hear very often, obviously we need to support and encourage women to go for very technical job. Consider technical job, like actually data engineering, data scientists, etc. my initial background is math, and then I moved to finance. So I agree with that entirely. And I think we're getting there, and this event is very exciting to that extent. But I think the problem is that when women get into those jobs, partially because of management, partially because of role models, partially because of insufficient yet encouraging networks, they're not being told the truth about the power of their social skills and the problem of their lack of soft business skills. So what people call politics, So I speak the truth to women, and I tell them this is part of your job to help the organization, to know people, to build soft skills. I'm not saying that most women don't have good communication skills. Most women have exceptional communication skills, but they're not being trained because they don't see other women do that, or because they see men not liking that in women. They're not being trained to grow their networking skills, to speak up in meetings, and all of those things are judged by the organization because they are important elements of management skills as well. So my point is, it's very important to encourage women to go into technical skills roles. I think it's very, very important. But I think it's very important to not just tap on their head and say, oh, well done, you're a data engineer. I would like to see women interrupting people in meetings, speaking up so that they're not interrupted, and kind of, when I say daring, that's what I mean. And I think that's where the point about role models from CEOs all the way down to internship is very important, because if you don't see other women do that, or if you see colleagues commented very negatively on this woman, this is very hard to go for that. I remember when I was at Goldman Sachs as an associate. Oh, can you hear me?
Yes. There was just a little bit of like when you're talking about the criticism of the style.
Yeah, I was saying, I don't remember who mentioned that before, but the words you use to describe the environment, the comments you make, the more diverse a team is, the less likely some behaviors which are completely fine for men are stigmatized for women. And the problem is, I remember when I was at Goldman, when I was like a young associate, my manager was like, you're way too self-confident, so people think you're arrogant. I was like, I'm behaving exactly the way I'm supposed to behave. If men think I'm arrogant, that's probably mean I'm like them, and I'm going to stick to that. And they were very annoyed that I said that. And I truly believe that. And maybe I was arrogant, but they were as well. So my point is, I think it's important to build soft skills, so not arrogance, but soft skill, business soft skills, not just being a very good executioner, even if you have an amazing brain. I think
Absolutely.
It's both.
Yeah, to be able to present yourself with confidence and to have the right tone, to have the presence.
Yeah, and daring to do it. And I think you need a lot of people encouraging you, because it's very scary. Yes.
Yep.
I must apologize because I need to run, but I was so happy to participate. Thank you, Anna, very much for inviting me.
Thank you so much for attending and sharing your input. Thank you, Alexandra.
Thank you.
Yeah, Sebastian also said he had to take off. So thank you, Sebastian. And
Sebastian.
Really welcome to have your input, and we look forward to continuing to meet with you. Thank you.
I think we ran over a little bit.
Thank you,
that was very
as
interesting. Very interesting. So now, yes, we can move on to our founders panel, which we have the great honor to have with us today, Aruna Schwartz, and we have Alice Miming.
And unfortunately,
sorry, Aruna is not able to make it. It's Sama
No, I'm here. Sorry, I'm here. This is Aruna.
Alice is here. Okay.
Alice and Aruna are here, and Same, she had a medical emergency and she apologized for the short notice cancellation, but she could not make it today. She will join us in future events.
Okay, that's it. Okay. So I can share the screen with their profiles, or we can go right into questions. I think we're short on time, so maybe I won't waste time doing that. We can just go right into the panel discussion. Anna, would you like
Sure.
to?
We decided we'll do it together with Cecile, but I'll get started. Well, our first question, well, first, we're so thankful to you for participating, for joining, for being patient. Once again, we had so many speakers confirmed. It was overwhelming. Could you please speak a bit about yourself and your company? Is there Aruna or Alice? Just take your turns, whoever wants to go first, please.
Okay. I was going to say the letter A will go first, but we both have started. So, okay, you, Alice.
Okay, so I will go first. Thank you very much, Anna, for having us here today. And thank you for all the women and men which were connected to the event. It's a very great pleasure for me to be among of us all. So my name is Alice Memong, and I am the co-founder and the CEO also at Delphox. Delphox is an IF startup that I joined 4 years ago in 2017. At that time, my partner, Maxime, was conducting research on the issue of learning in algorithm in artificial intelligence. And now we have developed a lot of skills and expertise today, and we are working in the aeronautics and special and defense field. Our ambition is to bring autonomy to industrial systems and empower operators to address highly complex problems using a human-machine trained AI. How do we do that? So we are developing the first platform to design autonomous systems which will be able to react intelligently in a dynamic and a changing environment. This platform would be intended for business experts, and it would help them to define their problematics, to define an objective so that the agent would be trained to solve it automatically and transparently for the user. So that's what we do. And following to this phase, the agent can subsequently be exported to be deployed and in the system or the vector where it must be used, like a drone, a car, a satellite, or a plane. That's what we are doing at Delphox.
Thank you.
Okay, so I guess it's my turn.
Yes,
so
please.
I am the CEO and co-founder of Stellar Technologies. We are a software company, and we address one problem in the industrial sector, which is how to transform documents which are mainly in PDFs or words into reusable digital data. Now, this is a very, very important problem in the traditional heavy engineering sector, because a lot of the information held within these documents, which by the way are about 80 to 90% of the information assets in a company. So the information within these documents has to be used in the most intelligent and rapid way to speed up maintenance, repair, and overhaul processes. So that is what our software focuses on, and that's the only thing we do. Our target sectors are aerospace, defense, avionics, oil and gas, and rail transport, with some of the biggest companies, and including the Indian Air Force, which is one of my biggest customers. Awesome. So I founded the company in France with my co-founder and flipped the company to India 6 years ago to work with one of the largest, as I said, digital transformation projects. And I'm speaking to you now from Bangalore, India, where it's almost midnight.
Oh, thank you so much for that.
Wow.
I appreciate it.
We didn't realize that.
That's okay.
Yeah. Well, really, thank you. As the next question, what are your questions or maybe feedback to the corporate leadership speakers? We know that some people had to drop, but we would still take notes, and we'll try to, we would like to wrap up this conversation and to have a dialogue between you and our speakers who are beginning the event.
So we have been part of 2 corporate innovation accelerators. One is the Airbus BizLab, and again, one of my target sectors, and also the Shell digital program, again, one of my target sectors. Diversity is diversity as in gender diversity has been, pretty minimal, I think.
Yeah.
almost zero. I think I'm very often the only woman among these many cohorts, whether it's in Europe or Asia. But there is a great deal of cultural, ethnic, and citizenship diversities, which is always great. But if I want to talk really to the corporate innovation, in terms of business, whether male or female, doesn't matter gender, it's actually, make innovation the heart of your business, because very often the innovation accelerators are a little kind of nice to have and like, fancy things to have around a company. But the actual hardcore businesses, which is the traditional, by the way, it's one of my favorites. These are my favorite sectors to work in. It's highly male dominated, but extremely pragmatic, and, don't waste your time with all kinds of jargon and business jargon. But the whole idea of corporate innovation accelerators attached to big companies is that it has to be part of your business, where business people with budgets, let me talk money as well, are involved. So that innovation doesn't become a nice to have, but actual use cases which can be used within the company.
Yeah,
so that is
thank you.
ask.
So that it's a more clear pathway from companies, from founders to the potential clients, to potential test programs, and like really go to market vehicle. Okay, Alice, what is your take?
Okay, can you just be specific about the question, please?
Well, just in general, we as we are aiming on connecting the dots, and hopefully, well, as we keep saying, networking, like women struggle, like perhaps it's harder for women to network, and this is one of the biggest values that and primary values that Women in Big Data as an organization provide. What is your ask, and what could be more helpful for you as a connection with the corporate and the corporate innovation programs? Like what would you like to see, maybe that you don't see enough, or that you see enough but you would like more development in that area that would bring value to your company and your growth?
Okay, of course. So just to mention what we did in the past, we have been part of some corporate acceleration, for example, by Thales, which was taking place in Montreal, in Canada. We also are in acceleration with DESO. So some of our clients held some accelerating programs that are very beneficial for us, because it's really helped us to get in touch with the workers, the operators, because they are the ones that are tackling the problems we are willing to solve. So it is very important, so we can talk directly to the people who are using our solution, so they can tell us about their work, about the difficulty they are facing every day, and it can help us improve the solution we are proposing to them. It's also important for us because every big society we are working with, they have this venture funds. And for a startup, at a point, we have the necessity to raise funds. And if we have clients who already work with us, who already use our solution, and who also have a VC, it's very easier for us to get in touch with them, so we can really raise funds for our society.
So that, in other words, the corporate innovation programs, they also help you with introductions to investors in the space where you work.
Yes,
and hope,
in the fields we are working in.
Yeah,
because it's like a trusting third part, when you have already your client which investor in your company in another way than just buying your solution. It can lead other funds to participate too when you are in a table grants fund.
Makes sense. Yes. And what about what is your perspective? Question to Aruna and then to Alice, as we're taking turns. What is your sense of the value of diversity on the startup side? Why is it good to have a team that is represented by people who come from different backgrounds?
I think it's the most important thing that, forget a startup, any company or any kind of society needs, And I have 31 investors across the world. Besides gender, I think we represent about 12 different countries. I think between us, we speak 15 languages. There's different ethnic groups. There are people who one of my investors is a Chinese immigrant to Spain, but went to school in the US and worked everywhere in Europe. So it is so important because you get so many diverse, diversity. I mean, being different and bringing it all together, I think, is the most important skill that a CEO or a leader needs to have. And I'm Indian, but I went to school in India and the UK, and I've lived in worked with big corporations in the UK, spent 20 years in France, came back to India, and being different is kind of second nature to me, and I think that is what the world should be. Or you'd get the same perspectives, and I think Alexandra mentioned, if you have the same kind of investors looking, who all agree with each other because they come from the same kind of socio-economic backgrounds or whatever, then you don't generally make the right decisions. And the
miss out on
biggest
opportunities.
equalizer in the world, is education, and higher education is so important. And that needs to be kind of what needs, that's what needs to be made accessible to everyone, to bring diversity together. So that's my take. I mean, I can't even think of a world without diversity.
Thank you. Alice, what is your take on the value of diversity and what does it bring to the company?
Of course. First of all, I would like to remind that diversity or being different is actually an asset. If I happen to be the only woman or the only Black woman or the only different people in the room, it really means that I have something new to bring to the table. I have some new skills, I have some new experiences, I have new background to bring. So it's very important that we have place for different people because they are going to bring us another way to look through things. They will particularly mention diversity in teamwork. As I can see with my teammates, it forces us to look beyond our own biases, to show empathy, to putting ourselves in some other shoes, and to have a different point of view. And when we really manage to do that and to keep working together, I think that it gives us such a power of creativity that it's very important and difficult to reach and to do with that when we are allowed to it.
Yeah, well, thank you. I like the creativity here. This is another big point for sure. Very important. We really, time flies, and we're running really close to the end of it. The last question is like, what is your suggestion? How do you think the ecosystem can improve by encouraging more women to start their companies or to join existing startups in technical or in business roles? Like, what's your suggestion? What's your encouragement to women who are considering these career opportunities?
My take on this is, this is for both male and female. It takes a very special kind of person to work in a startup, whether it's running one, which I do, which I've been doing for the last 8 years. You need to be extraordinarily tough because, there is no middle ground here. It's either exhilarating highs or terrible lows. Mm-hmm. And the success of a good entrepreneur is how well you come out of the lows, and you come out better and stronger, and you do it time and time again. So while it all sounds glamorous and exciting, when you run out of cash and when you can't pay some of your teammates, they have to be also so passionate and committed about the whole thing that they will hold on and share the same dream. And that is very, very difficult to find a team that will do that. And my advice to anyone, men or women again, wanting to work in a startup, they must have corporate experience, because Corporates bring processes. Corporates, even more importantly, teach you the art of politics, watching people's, learning or listening to how people behave, which is a very, very important skill in startups because you're managing multiple stakeholders. So have a corporate career, then decide to work in a startup, but you have to be really tough and more than tough, resilient, ready to bounce back and to bounce back with a team.
Thank you.
Okay, so if I have to say someone to a woman, a younger woman, or not younger at all, which want to go by that path, it's very hard. It's very tough, but hey, don't stop. You have to keep pushing. You have to keep going, because I think that there will be challenge in any other sectors. Every other sectors has its own challenge, but people are keep going. People are keep working. So this is the same here. You have to keep working. You have to keep fighting for what you want. So I would tell that to set your goals very high, because there are no other way to win that, to set your goal very high, and that to work very hard every day to keep pushing for their vision. And one other point I would like to mention, sorry, it's to really rely on men, because men are part of this too. It's not just a women combat. It's not just a woman thing we are just going to talk about here with in women's circle. No, the society is a society where there is half men and half women. So there is all a place for all of us all. So rely on men, rely on their expertise, rely on their experience. And sometimes I find it my way, men can be really supportive than women. So lean on everyone, lean on every kind of support you can have, and just set your goal and go for it.
Thank you so much. Thank you both for joining, and Aruna, special thank you for staying up so late. We really appreciate it. Elizabeth, truly, really, it was a pleasure. And Elizabeth, how do we want to wrap it up? What's your plan?
We have 7 minutes left, so we technically have 5 minutes to do networking, but I think maybe what would be most valuable is to say to everybody a big thank you, and maybe have a few closing words. I think this event was really informative and exciting for me to participate in, and learned a lot from you. I have a million other questions, and I wish we had another 2 hours to spend together, but I really think that we can organize a future event with some networking and maybe share what we've learned today.
Maybe more lively discussion as we brainstormed the other day, so we can just have people on the call and then have more free exchanges.
Yes, but thank you for allowing this recording. Tina, are you still with us here?
Yep,
yes,
I'm here.
Great. Okay, so Tina is our Women in Big Data board member, right? And European lead. So you are really responsible for getting me involved in this Paris chapter. So it'd be great if you could summarize this event for us.
Absolutely. First, I second what everyone has said. What a fabulous group of men and women we had with us tonight, sharing their stories. I heard some key themes about being authentic and true to yourself, focusing on value, not underrating yourself. I mean, these are wonderful lessons that we can all learn no matter where we are in our careers. So I'm grateful for all the speakers, and for those who participated for the first time, perhaps, in the Women in Big Data program in Paris. I revert back to the opening comments about your involvement. Please consider joining our program. Please consider sharing with us what you're most interested in seeing. What topics would you like us to focus on? What areas are you most interested in, be that job support, networking, mentoring, training. There's a variety of information and materials made available to you of no charge through participation and membership in Women in Big Data. And so I just encourage you to share in the chat, give us your email, let us reach out to you if you're open to that. And please consider participating in events like this in the future. And lastly, thank you to Anna and Elizabeth and Cecile for organizing this event today and for all the work that you put in making this happen.
That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tina. And we will be sending the slides out to those who do provide their email, and we will also be announcing a survey. We're preparing a survey to get more specific ideas that you would have, so that would be great. So we can close it here.
Just final note, as we discussed, it was also don't hesitate to tell us what would you like us to do and how would you like to get the value out of the community, because it's a huge worldwide organization with origins in the US and Silicon Valley. They also run these programs of merging all these communities between tech and corporate and startups with focus on female founders and big data. So like we really rely on you to tell us what your needs are for Paris and for France in particular. Because this is really the idea that we try to take those pieces and to bring them here and to to make the most out of it locally in local chapters.
Cool. Thank you. I'll stop the recording.
All right.